Hi, welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens. Today is going to be a really enlightening show. I'm looking really forward to this conversation from, total experts in the field of private jet catering, corporate catering, and that type of thing. It's going to be great. A couple of them I know really well. Two of them I just met, but all of them have really intriguing backgrounds, and what they do is something that we don't hear about every day, but it is a great career and a great opportunity for those who are aspiring to be a professional chef and doing it for the private jet industry, for the corporate industry, and being able to deal with all kinds of specializations and customization of things to cook the right thing for the people that you're serving and things like that. I couldn't explain it any better than these guys will be able to, which means I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody now that I've said that. We have, I'll start with good friend, known her for a while, consider a colleague in the industry, Young Park. Young is the founder and executive chef of First Chime. Love that name. And Young is actually also responsible for really helping me pull everybody together for this show. So Young, I'd like to thank you very much for your assistance with that, and really excited about having you on here again, because you've been a guest before, but this one's exclusively talking about private jet catering. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is an industry that doesn't really get a lot of attention. So, for you to shed a light in this very quiet business, it means a lot to us. Thank you.
Gotcha. Also with us is Jean-Pierre. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. He goes by JP. Probably I'll go back and forth with you. I like saying Jean-Pierre, actually. It's the most French I know. He is the executive chef and co-owner of The Art of Cooking and AOC Inflight Catering. Been in the business for a long time, has a great story about it. These guys are going to be able to give you some really great advice about getting into this industry, what to expect, how it works, and the rewards of it. So Jean-Pierre, welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And then I forgot to check on how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to go for it anyhow. People that have been watching this show regularly, they're like, there he goes. He's got at least one name he's not going to be able to pronounce. Steve Sipprell or Sipprell?
Second one, and you got it. I'll take either one from you.
Okay, I'll go with the one that works. That's Steve Sipprell. Steve is the founder of STEVIE's. I call it STEVIE's In-Flight. Everybody in the industry just knows STEVIE's. He's that well known and popular with what he does. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Thrilled to have you. And last but not least, John Detloff. John has been on All Things Aviation and Aerospace before. Before we talked a little bit more about being a corporate flight attendant, but he has one heck of a background, culinary background in catering and everything for the private jet industry. So it's really great to have you on board. John is the Chief Operating Officer of DaVinci Flight Training, the DaVinci Flight Training Institute down there in Florida. John, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So guys, lots to cover, and which, by the way, I don't know how I can not mention. So I'm actually doing this on location at Young Park's new facility. Yeah, for catering. So I'm sitting out in kind of a lobby area, and she's actually in part of her kitchen area. So just kind of showcasing it a little bit as she puts the finishing touches over the next few weeks on it, and really looking forward to being able to do that from here. What I was going to say though is that what I want to start out with is looking at you guys' background. I think it'll really help our audience to know a little bit about each of you, because all of you have very unique stories that I just think are worth hearing about. And I even have a few questions about them, but I really want to talk about that before we kind of dig into the specifics of doing private jet and corporate jet catering. So, and Young Park, I will
Yes.
start with you. I will yield to the lady and let you tell us a little bit about your super interesting background.
Well, I am a very unusual case where I was a client of everybody today, STEVIE, JP, and the company that John was employed previously. So I am a flight attendant, corporate flight attendant who was a contractor. So I had multiple contracts, and I was very busy. So I used catering company service a lot. And really, that's how I get to know about the catering. 100% field experience, and then during my layover, I used to go visit the catering companies just to kind of get to know each other, build a mutual relationship, and to see what their kitchen looked like. And then I was a contractor for one of the official Olympic sponsors, and as soon as the Pyeongchang Olympic in Korea was announced, they called me right away. So I got that trip secured 3 years before the Olympic actually happened. And then it was getting close to the time, and my phone started ringing. Hey, Young, we have this, Olympic trip to Korea. Will you be available as a flight attendant? I said, well, you know what? Let me call them back and see if I can, kind of confirm it, because I already committed to this company and I cannot double book myself. So I called the company and they said, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, but we already found a full-time flight attendant, so we won't need your service. I said, no problem. Somebody else will call. And then as I hang up the phone, it hit me, because I've been to many Olympics. I went to Davos every year, all the major sports events. It is literally a catering hell. You have to put in a request, a catering request, like at least few weeks before. Otherwise, you will have a hard time sourcing the catering. So as soon as I hang up the phone, I thought, who's going to do all the catering? Because I was born and raised in Korea. I've been to Korea many times as a flight attendant. I can't really say I had a wonderful experience sourcing the catering, even when I speak the language and know the town. So I thought, I think I will. And that's really how I got into the catering business. Of course, it was not as easy as I just put it, but initially when I was trying to get ready for the business, I got a lot of help from my friends in catering companies who didn't hesitate to share all the informations they thought I should know.
Yeah.
So there was a tremendous help for me to know how to prepare myself to and what to know and what not to do, what to do as far as running the catering company. So I owe this back to you guys, all the caterers who I've been friends with, who's been supporting me, who's been providing catering for me. They did help me with a lot of information, and with that, I benefited from that.
Yeah, one of the things that totally inspires me is that you guys are all successful, but one of the things that you all emphasize is wanting to help the next generation get into this industry, help young people that are interested in aviation. Maybe they already have unknown talent that in terms of their ability to cook, and not realize that this is a great industry and a great opportunity. And Young, I'll come back to you and say that, you have made a lot of efforts in that area to encourage young people to come into this industry. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, so I do have a scholarship set up to remember my late brother. It is actually the scholarship for somebody to go to college to attend the course, to complete the course, to have a flight attendant certificate course, and that is the educational part. And once it is done, as I expand with this new kitchen, I intend to offer the internship for anybody who would like to know more about the aviation catering, or just the fundamental of aviation, anything related to what happens in a kitchen and how to work it on the aircraft, the whole transition. It is all related. So just because you've been flying for a long time, it doesn't mean you are excellent in catering. It really depends on the person's experience level and what is your focus in your career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the fact that, John, you have a really interesting background and a really interesting responsibility in that you've dealt with both sides, both the corporate flight attendant side of things and the catering side, and you come from a very strong culinary background. How about you start out, first of all, and tell us about that background, and then we can talk a little bit about, bringing that forward.
All right. So my background, I always had a passion for aviation as well as culinary. I actually wanted to be my dad worked on F-14s and I wanted to be a fighter pilot. But unfortunately I had bad eyesight and my mom is from Spain. So I used to go to Spain a lot and my family had restaurants. So I always had like the bug for the culinary side as well as the aviation side. So after college, I went to culinary school. I worked on different restaurants, hotels. I worked on yachts as well. And then I had a friend of mine who was in aviation and he was like, hey, you want to be a flight attendant? And I was like, never really heard of this, never really thought about it. And I became a flying chef for different celebrities and movie stars. And then I worked for a family down here in South Florida for about 13 years, a great family. We had about 17 aircraft at one time, and I was their chef on their aircraft and ran their in-flight services. And then after that, my wife and I have two little girls, and I decided to try not to fly as much, and I got into I'm going to say the catering side. So I became the vice president of Air Culinary worldwide for about 8 years, and then I got into DaVinci, which we are a training company for flight attendants. So therefore, they can communicate better with the caterers as well as how to plate the food properly on the aircraft. DaVinci, we also operate Tastefully Yours catering out of Atlanta too. So we have both sides of it. I'm going to say of the training side as well as the catering side on that aspect.
Tell us a little bit about the combination of being like an in-flight chef, but also as a corporate flight attendant.
It's very challenging because, your galley is small. There's different things. And trust me, as a chef, I've made lots of mistakes on an aircraft. And that's the hard part about being a chef or a caterer as well, because as a caterer, they prepare the food, they package it up, we give it to the flight attendant. And a lot of times that's where I'm going to say the flight attendant will mess up, overheat it or doesn't know how to plate it properly. And that's where, as a chef, I have those skills. So I've tried almost everything you can imagine on aircraft, and I've cooked almost everything that you can imagine on an aircraft. So I kind of know what works and what doesn't work. And it's definitely a challenge, and because, the great thing is every flight's different.
Sure.
Every flight is different. Every cuisine is different. I have served White Castle burgers on an aircraft, and I've done 12-course meals on an aircraft. And that's the fun part about being a chef on board the aircraft, as well as being a chef, for a catering unit, that every mission is different. Every flight is different. And that's where you can really be creative.
Yeah.
And
Young, go ahead and chime in there. I
Yeah.
have something else to that. Go ahead.
If I may chime in, I think there's a very, very
Chime in
foggy
first, Chime.
I think there's a very foggy blur line out there among the aspiring flight attendant or aviation chefs, where there is no defined line of, okay, this is account you can cook. This is account that you can't cook. I think there's this general census going on and say, well, you have to know how to cook. You have to be good at culinary. What do you mean by culinary? I think that needs to be said. There are accounts that you cannot cook, even if what they need is your plating skills, more of a food coordinator, food like a designer, and then there are accounts where the aircraft owners will request you to cook. So it is not all the time. It's 100%. You don't have to be able to. You don't have to cook. You don't have to be a chef to be cooking on board, but there is a fine line, a defined line, where certain accounts you really shouldn't cook, and there is there are some companies where you can cook. And before you go any further, when during your job search, rather than you try to look for the account and say, then try to push your way like, oh, I'm good at culinary, try to find out what companies want from their crew members first. There will be an easier route for you to navigate this, job seeking world.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not everybody's a chef.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I got some great chefs right here in front of me. I mean, you can be a chef and fly and do a lot of things, but just because you went to a culinary class or anything like that, that still doesn't make you a chef.
Mm.
And that's where even, as a corporate flight attendant, if you want to cook on board, work for a caterer, know the ins and outs into what works on the aircraft, because that is a hard part of, you cannot do everything on an aircraft.
True.
Steve,
that plating is critical.
Yeah.
yeah, Steve, you've talked about, at least I've read what you've talked about in terms of no two flights are alike. So what's your take on all of this that both Young and John are talking about? Steve, can you hear us? Okay, I think
he froze.
yeah, did you freeze?
It froze. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear us now?
I think I caught that. I can. I think that we're talking about new to flights are the same. When you're trying to produce food.
Yes. Okay, while we wait and see what's going on with Steve's audio, JP, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a background of restaurant, and obviously that helped me and helped us a lot, because cooking for airplane, technique is different, vocabulary is different. We have to connect, and that's the challenge, to connect with our flight attendant or brokers and understand exactly what the end client really wants. So definitely it's a challenging business. But coming from a restaurant where you have to deal with so many details, it really helps us after to understand and try to understand the different technique to be able to cater to plane. Because it's, as you say, it's different. You don't read the same way, you don't season the same way. So I think you need to have already a strong culinary background. As I'm talking about the catering side, a catering background to after really start to work for in-flight catering. Because honestly, even me coming from a restaurant, when I start to discover this business, I mean, it's completely crazy.
Yeah. So Jean-Pierre, how did you get into in-flight catering?
I mean, completely out of the blue. I was working in Las Vegas. In fact, I had a small cafe, bakery, and one of my clients, in fact, had a catering company for corporate jet here. And for months, he came to us. He said, "Hey, come with us. I need a chef. Come on." And I was kind of fighting with my partner at that time. So it was just the right timing to jump. And one day I say, "Okay, I gotta try it." And I really discovered a fantastic, industry, completely make crazy. As not every flight is different. People have completely crazy requests, the last minute. So you need to pull out all your knowledge and be able to fulfill the caring. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, Steve, do we have you now?
I hope so.
Yep, there we go. So Steve, tell us a little bit about your background first, and then we can talk more about this in terms of the services you guys provide in catering.
I did not know what I was going to do in junior high school or high school. Went down to college and ended up, having to supplement income like a lot of individuals, and was working in a restaurant. Through a series of transactions, a great customer came in one day that would end up changing my life. He was, long story short here, the individual's name was Kirk Kerkorian. Back in the day, there was very few billionaires, and he was one of them. And I was very fortunate to be able to speak with him as I worked in that restaurant. And we talked about business school and whether or not, college was what I wanted out of college, where I would go with it. And what I was, over a few months, He would left some very generous gratuities, and they did help offset the college tuition. From that, I got a phone call from one of his people one night and asked if we would deliver, or if I could deliver food to an address, of which I did. And I had no idea about airplanes, private jets, anything. So I got in my old car and drove up to the address, and it happened to be an airport, happened to be Van Nuys Airport. And he had this huge airliner that you walk up the back end. I walked through security, not thinking I'd see him, and maybe I would get a $5 or $6 tip or something for doing it. And I ran into his flight attendant, and she said the individual would like to talk to you for a few minutes. So when I had delivered that beautiful food that came out of the restaurant, by the time it got there in the car, and me driving on top of it, and then carried it upstairs and sticking it down there in a produce box, it was to say needed some improvement. He was sitting on a couch, and it was the individual that would come into the restaurant. And he said, "You know what?" He goes, "I thought about something for you. If you could figure out how to put great food in those restaurants on a private airplane like I own, I think you could have a pretty great career doing it." So for the next few years, I worked in different restaurants around Los Angeles, volunteering any amount of time I could to learn the skills from a great myriad of different chefs who helped me. It was always an open door policy, and I learned a lot going through it. Then I opened up my first company, and as the guests have said here, it was a struggle then, and it's a struggle now. You know, I don't pretend to know anything. I try to stay humble every time I can, because there's something different every day. So I'm very fortunate to be where I am, and I've had great people along the way.
Yeah. Let's go around the room and talk about each of your companies for a minute, and then we can get into even deeper into what you do. And I'll start with you, Young. Tell us, because you've done a few things regarding catering, and now you're moving into another phase. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, the Korean company was doing very well, but I was still flying. I still fly, but I can't fly as much as I used to. But you know, like November of 2019, I saw like a steep decline of sales. Like I would say about 80% of the sales. It was almost non-existing, and I just thought it was just a weird month. But there was a talk of this unknown virus going on. So to make long story short, I realized this unknown virus was bound to become pandemic. So I closed the business early on, even before it was named pandemic. And then I frantically looked for a small kitchen in local area. And being based out of Dulles area, this was my home base to begin with. I just had to find a way to survive for God knows how long this pandemic will be. So I had to structure it in a way where I could just survive. And then it's been great, and thanks to all my friends the companies who's been requesting me a service. So I'm expanding for the aviation catering, but I also plan to do the private dining, because the town that I'm living is a beautiful town, it's a wonderful town, but it's a really good location for me to deliver, because it's an equal distance to Dulles, to Baltimore, to DC. I'm in the smack in the middle, so the location for the catering is fantastic. But as for the local, there isn't really any high-end restaurants. We have to go to DC, which is an hour, or Baltimore, which is an hour. So I think I would like to offer that kind of high-end service and bring in the local talents, the local culinary culinary school graduates, to use this kitchen as like an experiment, like training course for them to go to a bigger city later on.
Steve, tell us about STEVIE's.
Oh, it's fascinating every day. So that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's good it's in California, because it could be to something out of Hollywood, you know, the different things that go through there. We're near the Van Nuys Airport. That kitchen runs 24 hours a day. We're very fortunate to have the client base that we have. It's been built upon for years. There's been customers that I started with from day one, still with me. And there's been employees when I was young and, hired people. They were much older than me, probably my age now. And so I've seen them retire. I've seen them move on. And I have still about the 5 or 6 of the original employees for 30 years that have been with me. We've had some turnover, but I'm happy where I am in LA. It's I'm somewhat next to Hollywood, but not in Hollywood, so I get to see all the great things that go on there, and it's been a joy to be able to be part of it. And it does never feel like I'm ever working. In fact, I let a lot of the staff there that we work with. It's almost like a big family, and I'm glad that there's a collaboration that Young's doing as well by bringing youth in. We try to do that as well, and our doors always open for people that want to get into the culinary arts.
That's really great to hear. Jean-Pierre, how about you? You're in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas, crazy city. So, keep us very young. Yeah, I mean, the same, we are dealing with celebrity, politician, concert show. The thing is, I think with Vegas is that you have this time where it's going to be slow, and suddenly out of the blue, because there is one show or something and we're going to be packed, or you have like a fight happening and everything. So you need to react extremely quickly. So we don't have a lot of, time usually to react, but, that's what we do. So it's all time different. And
yeah. John, you guys are big time into training, and you do some training on the culinary side as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so DaVinci, we do training for corporate flight attendants. So we're the only school that really does culinary training, service training, as well as emergency training. So our culinary training is geared towards, I'm going to say, corporate flight attendants, of how to plate the food properly, how to reheat the food, as well as how to cook some of the food. Because we have some great caterers here, but not necessarily you're going to be in a location that has a great caterer. So sometimes you have to think outside the box. So we teach all that as well. And then we also have Tastefully Yours, which is our catering unit out of Atlanta, Georgia. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And I always, as a chef, when I first started off, I never thought about aviation cater. I never thought there was anything about that. And this is a great industry as a chef to be in, because like all of our colleagues have been saying, it's like every flight's different. I have cooked for Japanese ambassadors, I've cooked for Middle Eastern clients, I've cooked for, celebrities, movie stars, diplomats. And so our culinary background, we have to learn quite a bit, I'm going to say, compared to just working in a French restaurant or just working in a Spanish restaurant. We have to know multiple cuisines, which is also, it's great for us as chefs, because we learn all these different types of cuisines and we get to taste them, and we also get to bring it to the aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine my shock. I was always the client of you guys. So, my mentality is, well, I need it by 1 o'clock tomorrow. Your job is to make it happen. I think that's the usual consumer mindset. And goodness, now I'm on the flip side. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Just to put one order, it takes this much. So this has been a valuable experience for me. I really think I really would like any flight attendant, if anybody's watching, please call the catering companies and ask them if they can visit you. It just helps you to understand what's going on. And as for the new chefs and people who are interested in culinary, the challenge, that this new fresh challenge, that you're right, there's no two flights. Every day there's something. So if you love challenge, if you like to pursue something new, want to be creative, this is a perfect area in culinary world, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys have all been talking about, we've started to delve into some of the specifics of in-flight catering. And one of them I keep hearing over and over is plating. So can you guys kind of expand on that, why that is so critical and is as important as the actual food that you're providing?
Anybody?
I mean,
Sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
It's honestly an art form, and I think the panel you have here has the ability to put art on a plate. I think if you look at the adage, or you look at the old adage that you eat with your eyes first, there's an expectation when you're paying for something, especially with the price range that you're paying for with us, based on packaging and service that Young's spoken about for 24-hour availability, that you have to have something that's special. And those culinary arts come into play, where you have to have the knife skills and the ability to present and arrange something almost like a piece of art. And that's where I think we excel, and we excel as an industry, is that you have the ability to put something on a platter that will impress the most distinguished guests time after time. And we're in that bubble of of the airplane where you have a few windows and you have maybe blue or gray on the outside of that and some earth tones in the interior. The food becomes the center point, if it's not the flower arrangement or the service of someone like Young that's on the plane with a smile that's engaging. It becomes the actual food, and that food has to stand on its own. And if you plate that and put that on the credenza, it better pop off that credenza and be something pretty special. And for that, we have great careers because of it. But it's a delicate balance about putting and finding things that are unique and special that people that you don't know will consume them based on food allergies and things like that, and also enjoy them while they're sitting there.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. I think it was John that said you can serve anything from White Castle to the fanciest food available. When you serve White Castle or In-N-Out or something like that, is plating a factor then, or
it's still a factor? I mean, food is the only thing that hits all five senses on the aircraft. If you think about it, food is very personable too, as well. So you can have the nicest brand new aircraft, beautiful thing, but if the service is horrible and the food and the plating's horrible, the flight's horrible. But if the service is good and the food is good, the flight is great. So, like I said, food is the only thing that hits all five senses. So plating is critical of how you do it. And there's a lot of different plating techniques out there. And I can make one dish, I can have a chef give me food and I can plate it 10 different ways, and that's the critical part of, what we do as caterers is we give you all the tools to make that plate look beautiful on board your aircraft, as well as the platters that look beautiful.
Sure. JP?
Yeah, no, definitely. You eat with your eyes. So the client, if you go to a restaurant, that's the first thing you see before you try the food. You need to pop up. And that's exactly that. We have to present the food the best way. We have also to think about the packaging, because unfortunately we are dealing with delivering food and everything. So even when you move the food, you need to think about how you're gonna still look nice. So there is quite a challenge about that, but it's very important.
Yeah, you bring me to something that I've always been curious about in terms of, and we touched on it, I think, a little bit, but what you just said, transferring the food. So you make the food at your catering kitchen, and then getting that food to the aircraft, and then being able to present it on the aircraft, and when it's, if it's breakfast, dinner, or lunch, or whatever, and things like that. Can you guys talk about that, how that process works and how you keep it fresh? And it'll take us into another area, and that's food safety.
Well, I mean, we are all abided by the local health department's regulation. So of course the kitchen has to be deemed safe. We just have to follow the regulations and rules. And then as far as the packaging concerns, we don't. It really depends on the flight too, because sometimes there are no flight attendants. There are, sometimes there are flight attendants. If there's a flight attendant on board, we don't really package it for the people who will consume the food, but rather for the person who will plate it. So, it's just a different packaging. And these aviation caterers, they have a vast knowledge about what the flight attendants do on board, a lot more than the flight attendants think the caterers know. I mean, the experience, like Stevie, it goes 30 years down. So you just have to explain a little bit sometimes. Like sometimes I don't know. They just place an order. I need to know if it will help me if I know if there will be a flight attendant on board or not. That way I can kind of separate the packagings. So if there's no flight attendant on board, then we make it easy for the passengers to help themselves. If there's a flight attendant on board, then we make it easy for them to plate it. That's one thing.
Steve, JP?
Yeah, definitely. That's first is start with communication with whoever gonna place the order. Is it a short flight? Usually short flight, you're gonna plate it, ready to eat. So nice presentation. If it's a long flight, 5-6 hours, usually flight attendant gonna be here, and you're gonna help her, depending the packaging she wants. She want oven tin, she want micro, different oven. and we're gonna try to help them, and we're gonna try to communicate with them to see, hey, how how can we help you, for plating or reaching, and so that's communication. That's very, very, very important.
Yeah. I've been on a lot of different types of private flights, and I've been on a military VIP transport where the flight attendants actually cook the food in the galley for us. But I've also been on it where the corporate flight attendant prepared it, but it was prepared.
Yeah,
But
so
it's more like they warmed it up and
Reheat
plated it, if you will, et cetera, and so forth. And then I've been on ones where they brought boxes with a sandwich, a bag of chips, and a cookie. That was usually on like a 4-passenger, small citation jet or something, and that type of thing. Can you guys just kind of delve into that a little bit in terms of what we're talking about?
I think for the military flights or the government flights, it's rather a security issue. So like especially the Air Force flights, they would rather have they want to make sure the food is prepared there and the food ingredients are vetted by the Air Force personnel. So nobody gets sick or there's no security issues at all. And as far as the other things, I think it's pretty, standard. Maybe Steve can elaborate better.
Well, I don't know about that. You were on a roll there for a minute. I liked it, there's a number of paths I think you could go down, but I mean, there's some paths that the government lays out as well in your military flights or things you're doing that are set up with laws and regulations well before that, with things like CURFL or HACCP, where basically in layman's terms, it's a path of travel for food safety. And it starts with, whatever the agriculture company is that you're buying the product from, whether it's organic or not. And it travels itself into your kitchen where you have, regulated refrigeration in an area where you take the food in, and how it's prepared and how long it is and how time sensitive it is to be safe to turn it around. So I think on your flights, Vince, I think there's a myriad of ways that you can get the food on the plane. But I think the safest way and the most, air being the problem, with contamination is if you can play it safe and try to eliminate any type of area there's contamination, I think you'd be just fine on any of the things you've discussed here.
Right.
And I think Steve hit it on a point. I mean, food safety, I was amazed when I first started in this industry that there is no really food safety regulations on board the aircraft. And I've seen so many flight attendants and so many corporations and all this. You're best to eliminate the possibility of food safety. And we do a lot of training with the military as well, is to actually use an aviation caterer. The Air Force has their own kitchens that they actually prepare the food, but as far as corporate and business aviation, you're always best to use an aviation caterer because of food safety regulations, because we cook the food, we chill the food properly, we transport the food properly, we store the food properly till it's all the way delivered to you, compared to, I'm going to say, restaurants and hotels and even Uber Eats and stuff like that. There is no chain of command when it comes to, I'm going to say, food safety on that aspect, because as a restaurant I have to give you the food hot. Exactly. Because of food safety issues. I give you the food hot and you're supposed to consume it hopefully within probably 2 to 4 hours or until it reaches 70 degrees. Compared to us as a caterer, we take that food, we chill it, we box it up, we make sure it's always in proper temperature and to give it to you. And therefore, you're always best using an aviation caterer for food safety.
Yeah, so you really think about it, which, I mean, there are parts of the world where the aviation catering is not available, but with my flight attendant experience, based on my flight attendant experience, if for the international trips, we have to be at the airport 2 hours prior to departure. So we have to get there 2 hours prior to departure, we have to leave the hotel an hour before that, give or take. Then you have to pick up the food. If you're picking it up from the restaurant, at least 30 minutes before you leave the hotel. That's 3.5 hours of this food staying in the room temperature. It is unacceptable in restaurant regulations, but it is happening. Sometimes you have no choice, but it is definitely something you have to consider when you are serving that food to the passenger or your pilot, especially, you don't want them to get sick. So using the aviation caterer is the safest way to source the safe food.
So let's
And
tie this
communication.
in. Go ahead.
And communication is key.
Mm.
You know, like Young was saying, and everything we do, you know, depends how long the flight is. What type of refrigeration you have on board the aircraft. You know, there's a lot of factors that go in play when it comes to food on board an aircraft.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was going to take me right to where I wanted to go with one of the other factors, and that's you guys have a lot of different types of clients. You deal with FBOs, you deal with corporate flight departments, individual owners, fractional operators, charter operators. Can you guys speak to that as it relates to what we're talking about here? Open it up to anybody.
You mean like in the difference of the
Yeah, in
nature?
terms of how how that applies to the different types of clients that you have, or is it pretty standard? I mean, you know.
No, they are all different. There's not one of them the same. I mean, a broker to a fractional company to a corporate company, each one is different, and that's where, you know, we strive, because you have to keep each client happy, and each client's different as well.
I think that's the point I was trying to make, is as how you address that to adjust to each client to then maintain the integrity of the quality of food, safety, et cetera.
I think as far as the maintenance, maintain the integrity and the quality, I think it is the same. It's just how the order comes in, you know, and then what kind of attention is being put on, and how we kind of know this flight has a flight attendant and this flight doesn't have a flight attendant. A lot of times when we receive the orders from the dispatchers, that usually they don't have a flight attendant. So we try to make it, you know, as for me, I try to make it as passenger friendly as possible, so they can just easily find things. Whereas flight attendants place an order. You know, I am a flight attendant too. So when I get the order, I try to put myself in her shoes and try to visualize myself on the aircraft and think, you know, think if this was my flight, how would I want it packaged? How would I want my service to go? So there's a little bit of advantage of me coming as a flight attendant to that. So more details they give me, better for me to better understanding what they want.
Back to the communications point. that
Yeah,
Jeff was
exactly.
making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of the show, I really want to talk about, we have about 20 minutes left or so. I wanted to really talk about for our audience, how you get into this. And so all of you have had really interesting stories. Some of you stumbled into it. Some of you, it was just kind of a natural order of things. Some of you didn't see it. One of you didn't even see it coming. So, but for somebody out there, they like cooking, they're aspiring to be a chef. They've always thought about it more in terms of the traditional routes, working for a hotel catering or working at a restaurant or things like that. What kind of advice can you guys give for somebody that says, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. I think I want to get into aviation catering for private jets and corporate jets?
I will say that the door is always open. I think there's an extreme amount of growth that can happen in this industry. I think that it's still in its infancy, and that there's different cities where you could definitely move into it and have collaboration with people that exist or in other cities that help. This what you're doing here is fantastic. I think it'll open a lot of eyes to what is going on in the industry. Currently, in our operations, we're looking to hire 25 individuals currently. That gives you some indication just with one operation what actually is out there in the current market. I think that if you come with attitude and you come with an ability to be dependable and critical thinking skills, which you'll find, you know, in high school or junior high school through your counselors, teachers, whoever it is that's helping you. If you just walk through the door, you're probably 80% ahead of your peer group in the same thing. You don't have to know anything about food. I would prefer to have someone that comes out of high school, or say an individual that I can take and brings attitude and brings talent, and then I can train them how
Oh, wow. He was giving such valuable information. We lost you for a second, Steve.
catering.
Yeah, I think Steve hit it that.
One of the things I think JP
Go ahead,
or
John.
John touched on. It's
Oh, there he
this
comes.
is
He's
something
back.
the way that things are done, acknowledge what it is from the food industry to be able to be molded into what we're doing here.
Okay. Steve, we lost a little bit of that, but you're
Oh, I'm
back
sorry.
now with us. So
I
I
think
was going
Steve
to
hit
ask
it on
you,
the head,
the
though.
25 positions that you have, are they all similar, or what type of positions are you guys looking for?
We're looking for,
Looking to
say,
fill.
for example, let's go into a driver position. That driver is the face of the company. They wear the uniform, they have the smile, they have the engaging thing. They speak to the FBOs, they speak to when they show up at park, or excuse me, Young when she's there, and she's ready to go. And with her flight, they're the communication, or the arm that reaches out to be able to touch.
And we lost them again with the Wi-Fi issue. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
So the driver positions.
this industry is always open to chefs. I think, even at Tastefully Yours, we're hiring as well. And you can come in anytime.
We're hiring a need chefs in the area. We're hiring customer service, flight attendants, people that are aviation. Bummer, I hear you.
Okay. We just got the last part of that. You were talking about customer service and that type of thing. And then you've been going in and out. Sorry about that, Steve. It must be your Wi-Fi. Go ahead, John.
I think we as an industry, I think we're always hiring, like Steve says. If you walk through the door, you're 80% there. And I always tell everybody I can teach a monkey to cook, and that's why I do it. I can teach anybody how to cook, and I think this industry, if you're interested in the culinary industry, this is a great place to start, because you can actually come in and learn from the grounds up, all the steps, and we're dealing with the top 1% of the world. So I think you have a great opportunity to go into, any of our catering facilities, and we're always hiring because it is a growing industry.
Yeah.
And you're always learning something new too. And every day is different. It's a hard industry. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
It's a hard industry. It can be 24/7. It is not an industry that it's a 9-to-5 job.
It's definitely not for the faint heart. It looks fabulous. Oh my God, luxury service, blah, blah, blah. You get yourself in the kitchen and you cook until you lose your nerve on your right arm. It is not so fancy anymore, but there's a certain beauty in it, and I fell in love with it. And I have this newfound respect for all the aviator caterers that I would have never known had I just stayed as a flight attendant. The work is gruesome. It is unbelievably gruesome, but I constantly get a good food, and it is definitely they are the unsung hero of this industry. And I am looking into hire some more people, in a month or two. And I'm actually very excited. And I agree with Steve. I would like to have some young people come in with this new enthusiasm, who love this adventure and this challenge. The challenge is definitely something I don't think we will run short of it. So if you love challenge, you want to try something new, creative, the opportunity is here. Bring me something new. Let's see how we can incorporate it for our how we can apply it to offer to our clients. So that way I can build a company with the good group of people that has a creative mindset. I'm really looking forward to it.
JP, do you look at it the same way out there in Las Vegas?
Oh, yes. John, send me some monkey, please. I need some. No, we are all looking at and same, it's a very, very busy business. We need to, they cannot be scared. They need to find, if they find us, I think we can be the good mentor, because that's the way I take my business, where, I train people from A to Z. And same as STEVIE, I rather get people who are very enthusiastic, and we're gonna show them everything. We do everything from scratch. But you need to understand that sometimes we start at 3 a.m. We finish at midnight. There is no, I mean, that's the business. That's the nature of our business, because our clientele, take off when they want, or they're gonna show up, or suddenly they're gonna call you and hey, we're gonna land in 2 hours. Can we get something? So that's the beauty, but it brings some challenge too.
So like the private aviation and corporate aviation business itself, it's beck and call. It's whenever they're ready to go. And then you have to be able to scramble and prepare whatever it is that they're going to need for however many people they're going to need. And you're wanting to get one of our viewers was just sending in a note about the importance of details, which you guys have been talking about. The more you know, the better you can provide as caterers for a particular flight or whatever the case may be. One of you mentioned, it depends on the length of the flight, if it's a short hop or if it's, across the pond, and how that applies. I have a curiosity question. How often do any of you, I know Young, you've kind of gone back and forth, or you've always had also the corporate flight attendant side, but how often as a chef or a caterer have you actually had to go on the flight yourself because of the nature of the flight or the need?
It depends. Some companies will request the onboard chefs, and they will specifically ask you to cook on board. But of course, I still have to be careful, because I can't just bring like a raw squid on board. I have to prepare I have to have it somewhat ready for me to finish up on board, and I have to fall back on the caterer sometimes. I ask them to prep it to this level so I can bring it and finish up. So there are, like John said, you can cook everything from scratch on the plane. That is impossible. If anybody says you can cook 14 people filet mignon on board in 30 minutes, don't believe it. It doesn't happen like that. So, certain details, more information I get about the flight before I actually go on the flight so I can cook on the plane, better it is. So I can prep on the ground. So the majority of the time for me to prep the catering in the air, I spend more time on the ground, try to make it successful once we take off.
Yeah, and there are times I'm going to say, like, I've done a couple around the world trips as the chef on board, and it goes back to that comment. It goes back into the details of knowing where you're going, who's the caterer there. Even though as a chef that I'm going to prepare the food on board and cook everything on board, I still need a nice kitchen to make sure everything is going to, and get the food certified and all that of these locations. So, it's very rare to, I'm going to say, have a chef on board these aircrafts, but it does happen.
It does. Yeah. So as we kind of start to wrap up things here, really want to give as much of advice as possible. We've gotten into the nitty gritty of what you guys do, but for somebody that really never thought about it, and you guys have mentioned something that's kind of interesting. I've been under the assumption that you probably need to have an interest in cooking or being a chef, but what you're saying is yes and no on that. Maybe you guys can expand on that for me in terms of how you enter into this aspect of in-flight catering and doing what you guys do.
I would say first and foremost, the aviation. If you have any interest in aviation, you may not stay as a caterer or stay in the kitchen forever, but if you like anything about airplane, and you don't know exactly what, but you want to do something in aviation, just give us a call. Just come and visit and just talk, just so you can get part of this picture in big part of aviation. So that is something I highly recommend to any flight attendants or any aspiring chefs. If you're watching this, just pick up the phone and see if the kitchen is available. Just take a visit, get to know each other, hear their story. There's a lot of things going on. It is really fun. I love working in the kitchen. It's the crazy things that we do and funny things that it happens in the kitchen. And it's just very fun atmosphere. But then, there are times you get totally serious. It's like runs like a military. So the dynamic of it, it's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah, Young, you're self-taught, right? And you actually
Yeah.
you didn't go to like a culinary school or anything. You just kind of learned the
No.
business.
Yeah, but I guess
What was that like for you to do it, that take that path?
again, imagine my shock. It was, I came from a restaurant industry before I start flying. So I was not a stranger of the food industry, but really everything that comes out of First Chime's kitchen, I learned it as a flight attendant by prepping the food on board, visiting the caterers in each city I go to, whether it is Germany, France, Idaho. I mean, if I have like 5 days on the ground, I have enough time to go visit the people who will prepare my food, and at least get to know each other, and gives me a time to get on a train and have a nice scenery. So that little action that I put in during my layover got me here. So yeah, it's I don't have a culinary degree. I never went to any culinary school. Everything I know, I learned it as a flight attendant. So today I am totally humbled. I feel like I became a big time chef to be invited to your show and be among the chefs like John and JP and Steve. This means a lot to me. Thank
And
you.
I would tell you, culinary school. I mean, I went to culinary school and I loved it. I'm not saying anything wrong with culinary schools. But culinary school gives you the foundation. Everything, even as a chef, you still start off at the bottom after culinary school. So it's not like, you go to culinary school and I'm going to be an executive chef.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. Everything is still on the job training. Some of the best chefs I know never went to culinary school. So is it a plus? Yes, it's a plus. It's a piece of paper. But at the same time, what you learn and what you put in your career, I'm going to say, as learning to cook with these great chefs that we have on right now and what they're doing, that is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, what about you? What's your advice on this?
I think you have to believe in yourself. I think the youth that sit in there right now listening to this, if you made it this far in this podcast, you're way ahead, as I said earlier, in your peer group. And I think you have to believe and use the opportunities that are there and not listen to the negativity that's out there on the social media stuff, and believe that you can get up out of that chair, or you can get out of that city you're in and go anywhere and do anything. I think that ambition and confidence are something that is out there. And if you walk through my door, walk through any of the doors that are there, whether it's this industry or something else, it certainly is an opportunity to take your life and move and do something different with it. We're all special. We're all unique. I do food art. I take JP's name of his business there, but it's something pretty special. The pictures behind me were done by an artist. It's one thing. Nobody can recreate that. And that's the way I feel, kind of like Park said, or Young said as well, that you have something special and we all need to give something special. And I think in this case, what you're doing with this podcast is you direct it towards kids that need to get up and move. And these opportunities in any component of aviation, whether it's this or the episode you did earlier about air cargo, fascinating. Any component of aviation is unique and special. If you don't like this, you can use it as a stepping stone. I've had many employees come in and many friends I've met. Some of them have become extremely successful by saying, hey, I don't like the early hours mentioned by John. I don't like working in the chaos. I prefer to do something different. And they've moved on and they've learned, taken these skills they've learned from us or anywhere else and gone somewhere with their lives. And that's the great stepping stone that I think we all offer here. And I hope that aviation catering and aviation becomes that stepping stone to push people forward in this somewhat chaotic world we're in currently.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you saying that, because one of the things that I stress with doing this show is letting the next generation or the up and coming aspiring young professionals, aviation professionals more specifically, know about the variety of opportunities, which is why I wanted to do this show on private jet and corporate jet catering, because it's really something different and special and unique. And it's something that we don't always think about every day, but it's there. And kids coming into this industry, or young people coming into this industry who I have found that even after they graduate from an aviation-centric university or college or whatever, they're still trying to figure out what they want to do. So, and I have 3 of my own, so I know what that's like. So I think that's a great point that you brought up. How about you, Jean-Pierre?
Yeah, it's a fantastic business. If really people are ready to come, in that industry and they thrive for it, they have to. And, we are talking about AI, we are talking about robots, replacing, most of the job today. This is our service industry is unique. So you will be never replaced by a machine.
That is so true.
It's so detail oriented. But you need to love what you do. But that's really, these service business are really unique. And I think we are in really in a very, very detailed industry. So there is a future for everybody.
Yeah. Well, guys, we have unfortunately run out of time, but it's been a really great conversation, and what great insight you guys have given about a really great aspect of aviation. So I really appreciate all of you taking your time. I know for sure all of you are super busy, which is a great thing. And I know for sure that you're really busy because you're all hiring. That means, and Jean-Pierre, you did a good job for somebody that's been up for, I don't know, 24 hours or something.
Oh.
You hung in there pretty well, especially being in a different time zone. But all of you really totally appreciate, what you guys had to say. And, we welcome everybody. We've actually been getting a lot of chat traffic on this. So I will pass people along to you guys that are interested in that type of thing. So everybody, thank you very much for being available today.
Thank you.
Yeah. All Things Aviation and Aerospace is a presentation of Private Air Media, which is available to watch on demand on my Private Air Media YouTube channel, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook Live. It's also available in the audio-only podcast form on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts on. Next week, I will once again have the FAA as my guest, this time featuring the Aviation Workforce and Education Division from the National Engagement and Regional Administration Office of Policy, International Affairs, and Environment. Please don't make me say that again. Until then, please take care, stay safe flying if you're a pilot like me, and blue skies. All the best.